When he was very young, Henry got a diagnosis of autism. And with that diagnosis, there came limitations, there came, treatment pathways, medication pathways, like all of these things that come with it, and it had a very medical orientation to it. When he became an artist, and I say he got his arts diagnosis and he became an artist, it changed. Like it became, an opportunity for community and expression and having adventures and experiences that he would have never had if we would have stayed in just one world. I often introduce myself and I'm like, oh, hi, I'm Henry's mom. And they're like, oh, what's your name? I've never met you. And I'm like, I love that because this is who he is. This is his community. I'm just here to support him and being the best Franklinton artist that he can possibly be. I think one of the impacts that I may have on Henry with his artwork, which I think is very little because it's really all from him, is that I make sure he has all his supplies. He has the items he needs to work with, the things that he really wants to, paint with or draw with. I feel like I'm in the background always like watching inventory to make sure he has things. And I think it's one of the fun things that we do is to go to the art store together and let him pick out whatever he wants to pick out because he loves to do it. And I'm always amazed that I'll think he has every blue color, every shade of blue he needs, and we'll end up with 4 other blues, and we'll come home and he'll use them because in his mind, he already knows what he wants to make.
I am Henry Hess's sister. That's how people know me in Franklinton sometimes, and I love it. I will always be happy to be referenced as Henry Hess's sister. He's so amazing, and I get to hang out with him, and it's a really great opportunity for me to be in Franklinton. He doesn't really communicate with his words very often, so a lot of time it is with his art. And I think that being his sister, I'm always around him, and I can kind of pick up on how he feels really easily. So I am one of the people that can sometimes prompt him into doing certain projects or working on certain things, but not everyone can. Henry is very inspired by old classic movies, so he really loves musicals. He loves, The Wizard of Oz, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, Mary Poppins. He loves a lot of the old classics. I think there's a lot of color, there's a lot of style and influences in there that you don't necessarily see in modern day movies. And they were what he gravitated towards when he was little. And I think that watching people be expressive in certain ways helped him figure out how to express himself on his own and through his art.
My interaction with Henry was to broaden that scope, to kind of pull him out of that world and show him the reality, like, hey, why don't we draw from reality a little bit, like do portraits or plein air, that sort of thing. Him attending the Sunday figure sessions that we do has really made a huge impact on the way that he views even, the scenes from the movie. He's adding more background elements to it. And like his portraits are starting to take like a more accurate shape, right? And that's just through practice. That's not me telling him how to do it, because like for somebody like Henry or just like any artist, like you can't tell an artist how to make their art. Like it's a process of failures and successes that allow us to do that. And Henry's always bucked against that. And I learned that when he was 15 years old, 14 years old.
My role as it pertains to Franklinton has always been Henry's dad. That's what I answer to, that's what I'm most proud of. And just being Henry's dad in Franklinton and carrying heavy things and hanging artwork is what I do.
I remember like walking past Henry's studio frequently and seeing him face down in, paper, just working all the time. The term we say is like committed lines. Like he'll dive in, he draws what he feels, he draws, like he's not trying to make it look exactly like what the object is. There's more, it's emotion, it's movement. His lines are quick and they show movement. So he thinks in a 3-dimensional way instead of just like a still from a thing. He wants to capture the essence of that. He starts with a flat piece of paper, and then as he works through, let's say, Dorothy's house, folds it all up. One piece of paper, he has the interior design and the exterior design of Dorothy's house. Or it could be, any number of things, like a car from Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. He pays attention, not every single piece is like that, but the pieces he cares about the most will have all of that. Like the floor plan is there. Like who thinks about it? And then he took that from a film. He took that from a film. And that's like where his brain is like, oh, I will construct her house and this is what I remember it looking like. It's so cool. It's like, I don't know anybody that does that except for Henry.
Henry's artwork is just very unique and it's completely inspired by what he wants to do and how he feels and how he sees the world. And I think that's something that's really unique, is that when you walk into his studio, it's almost like walking into a storybook and walking into a cartoon and seeing the pictures and the characters really come to life. And that's one really amazing aspect of his artwork.
What I've always wanted, just like for everybody, is like we all should be able to do it. Like we should all be able to navigate this world, and some of us need a little help. My goal for Henry is that because he has a difficult time communicating, I wanted to help him build his network. So like introducing him to young people, taking him into the community so he could see, because he's not gonna ask questions about like, hey, I'd like to learn welding. And so it's like, well, why don't I reach out to artists that I know in the community and say, hey, would you be willing to just hang out with us, show us what you do and talk about it a little bit? And so by doing that, they meet Henry. The young people are meeting Henry. And then when they have workshops or they have exhibitions, they're gonna think of Henry and invite him to be a part of it. You know, because he may not be able to go, I wanna be in that show, but somebody's gonna be like, Henry should be in this show. So I think that that's really just to expand his network.
When we talk about Henry's future, we talk about things that are important for him. His friends from grade school come up and they say, is Henry still drawing? Is Henry still doing his artwork? And they get so engaged that they're so excited to hear that that's what he's doing, that he's an artist, because that's what he needs to be doing for his career and what makes him happy. So when we talk about a meaningful, happy, fulfilled life, it's going to include art. And it's going to include artists. It's kind of what we've discovered, right? The people that are in this community in Franklinton, how they interact, how they communicate, they see themselves in Henry, and Henry sees himself in them. And that's a pretty unique environment for him.
Autism changed his life in one way, but his artistry changed his life in a path that we never saw coming. That has been one of the best things that's ever happened to him and to our entire family.